the average person eats 40 kilograms of sugar in sweets and in most of the processed food we buy. This sugar is the enemy responsible for the really shocking state of our teeth. Lisa is 5. She has perfect teeth. The trouble is her own. Every night, Lisa, like too many young children, used to go to sleep with a dummy full of sugary syrup. Her teeth just decayed away. In our mouths there are millions of harmless bacteria, but some kinds can stick to the teeth and multiply to form a tough layer called plaque, which is quite hard to see. Here the plaque has been stained with red dye, so you can see it more clearly.
Open that for me, Caroline. That's it.
This is plaque magnified 12,000 times. In each little lump there are many bacteria, which in a few hours will rapidly multiply and spread all over the teeth and gums. When sugar reaches the plaque bacteria, they feed on it and make an acid which eats into the enamel of the teeth. In time, decay can spread deep into the tooth and form an abscess.
On his left-hand side, you can see on his gum the signs of a chronic abscess in association.
The result for children in the United Kingdom is a staggering 7.5 million fillings and, even worse, 4 million extractions every year.
But today we're going to remove several of these teeth from his mouth.
Another problem for older children and adults is gum disease. The healthy gum is pink and firm, but if the plaque isn't removed, the first sign of trouble is that the gums may bleed when they're touched. This means that the teeth and gums must be cleaned more regularly with a soft toothbrush. If nothing is done about the gums, they can become severely infected, and eventually you'll lose your teeth. By the time you're all 20, a quarter of you could need dentures. But a few hundred years ago, as these Anglo-Saxon teeth clearly show, and for millions of years before that, tooth decay was rare. It's only since we began eating refined sugar that we've had a problem. But the problem isn't the same in all parts of the country. The tooth on the right is typical of those in North Shields. The tooth on the left is typical of those in South Shields. So why the difference? Well, about 40 years ago, researchers tried to find out why, here in North Shields, there were twice as many dental problems as there were in South Shields, on the other side of the River Tyne. The only difference they could find was that the tap water in South Shields contained fluoride. South Shields had 1 part per million of fluoride in its tap water. North Shields had hardly any at all. There are not many places in the United Kingdom where fluoride occurs naturally in the tap water at a level of 1 part per million or more. Fluoride at this level helps harden tooth enamel, reducing the number of decayed teeth. If you compare Hartlepool, which has 1.5 to 2 parts per million, with York, which has only 1/10 of that amount, this is what you find. In Hartlepool, half the 5-year-olds have some decayed, missing or filled teeth, and half have no problems at all. In York, 3/4 filled teeth. Only a quarter of the children have no dental problems. When the beneficial effect of fluoride was proved beyond doubt, the government passed laws to allow local tap water. 1 part per million of fluoride can be added and checked very accurately by water board experts. But not all water boards are yet doing so. These are the areas which have so far gone ahead. One place, Kilmarnock, added fluoride for 5 years, then decided to stop. This is what happened to teeth in Kilmarnock. In 1956, 5-year-olds had on average more than 6 decayed, missing or filled teeth. In 1963, after 5 years of fluoridation, the figure was just over 3. Then the fluoridation stopped. 5 years later, in 1968, the dental problems of 5-year-olds had increased to more than 5 decayed, missing or filled teeth on average per child. People who live in districts with fluoridated tap water, whether natural or artificial, are lucky. The rest of us can buy these tablets, which are especially important for pregnant mothers and very young children, but they are easy to. Another way is to have your dentist paint your teeth with fluoride 3 times a year. Unfortunately, this the national health. Using fluoride toothpaste may help a little, but with or without fluoride, our teeth will decay less if we brush them regularly and efficiently. At the level of 1 part per million is the only really successful way to stop. The body then has a good supply from the inside because of foods and drinks made with this water, and the outside of the teeth can pick up fluoride too. Every time we bleed, we lose an important substance which colours our blood red. It's called hemoglobin, and hemoglobin contains iron. Blood stains must be soaked out quickly. If they're left too long, they leave a brown stain that's difficult to remove. Most brown stains, like this coffee stain, come out with bleach, and it doesn't take too long. This brown stain is rust, made by a piece of iron. Bleach won't remove a rust stain, no matter how long you leave it. Bleach has no effect on an old blood stain either, because this is a rust stain too. The iron in the hemoglobin has turned to rust. Now, iron is an important substance for the proper working of the body. To find out more, we went along to Hillingdon Hospital to ask an expert, Dr. Reg Britt, about blood hemoglobin and iron.
Well, blood is composed of 2 parts, the serum red cells, and the hemoglobin is in the red cells. And hemoglobin, of course, contains iron. Iron is also found in a pigment in muscles known as myoglobin. If you become short of hemoglobin, and you become anemic. You become pale. And if you look at the eyes, these also become pale. But a much more accurate way of showing a person is anemic is by examining the blood. When you look at blood under a microscope, the normal blood shows red cells which are uniform in size, which are well filled with the pigment hemoglobin. When a patient has iron deficiency, the cells become small, irregular, and they contain only a small amount of the pigment hemoglobin, so they're much paler.
There are 3 groups of people who may become short of iron. First, infants and adolescents need iron because as they grow, their muscles get bigger and the volume of blood in their bodies increases. Secondly, women lose iron with the blood, and some women during the period lose very large amounts of blood. Third, during pregnancy, although menstruation stops, the growing fetus and the placenta which supplies its needs both require a great deal of extra iron.
In pregnancy, many doctors prescribe iron pills, but equally important to emphasize that iron-containing increased.
The easiest sources of iron are red meat and black pudding. Unfortunately, black fat, which we should be trying to avoid. You should remove the fat first, then. Now, liver isn't to everyone's liking, but you can train yourself to like it, especially as you need such small amounts. And it's easy to disguise it in good recipes that can show your skills. These kebabs lean bacon, pepper and tomato. Liver casserole with oranges is attractive, and this is kidney casserole with tinned tomatoes and green peppers. Most people can find a liver pâté or a liver sausage that they like, but watch out for hidden fat. Homemade pâté without the fat and flavoured as you like it is a much better idea. And it's good for a quick breakfast too. Eggs can be another good source of iron. If you hard-boil an egg that's a few days old, you can see the dark stain around the yolk. That's made by the iron. There has to be iron in an egg for the developing chick. Many plant foods also contain iron, but the iron in these and in eggs can be easily absorbed only if you take vitamin C at the same time. This is very important. There's iron in oats and wholemeal bread. Add an egg and a glass of orange juice and you have a good breakfast for someone who needs plenty of iron. Different people need different amounts of iron from their diets, but we usually absorb only a little of what we take in. Medical nutritionists say that on average we should take in 10 times as much as we need. So for growing adolescents and for women and girls who are menstruating, that means 20 milligrams a day. Our government recommendations are much lower than this, and much lower than other international recommendations. But they do recognise the need for higher amounts for 1 in 10 women and girls who lose large amounts of menstrual blood. And they suggest iron pills from the doctor as a... However, many nutritionists feel it would be far better for these women and girls to get more iron from their diet by taking vitamin C. So far, we've looked at 2 important substances in the diet, iron and fluoride. We need only a small amount of both of them. Iron has its own sources and its own job in the body. Fluoride has a different source and a different job to do. Vitamin C is another substance we need only a small amount of each day, but somewhat larger than iron or fluoride. It comes from its own food sources, fruits and vegetables, and it also has its own job to do, including making collagen. If you're short of vitamin C, you can't make it up by eating iron or fluoride. If you're short of fluoride, you can't make it up by eating vitamin C. Each one is essential for the correct working of the body. We call substances like this nutrients. Water is another nutrient essential for life. Your body is made mainly of water, and it has several jobs to do with sweating, flushing out soluble waste products, and so on. Since we need so much water every day, it's called a macronutrient. Iron, fluoride and vitamin C, where we need only small amounts, are called micronutrients. Now there's a big difference between a food and a nutrient. For a food you don't like, say sprouts, you can always get the nutrients from cabbage or cauliflowers. If you don't like liver, you can get the nutrients from red meat or the right mixture of plant foods. But if you objected to a nutrient and tried to do without it, you'd die. All nutrients, and more than 40 are now known, are essential. Fortunately, we get most of them easily in ordinary diets and don't need to worry about them. But some people need to think about 2 micronutrients in particular. We asked Dr. Britt to explain the problem of vitamin B12.
Vitamin B12 is a substance which is essential for the production of red cells. And when you become short of vitamin, the red cells are not produced and you become anemic. When you look at the blood, the cells are irregular in shape. They tend to be much bigger than normal cells. But in addition, the B12 deficient cells are well coloured and full of hemoglobin, as opposed to the iron deficient cells that contain very little hemoglobin. You've got plenty of hemoglobin in the vitamin B12 deficient cells because the iron is there and hemoglobin is produced normally.
Vitamin B12 is found in meat, eggs and milk products. We need only 2 micrograms, that's a very small amount, each day. There are 2 groups at risk. The first are vegans who don't eat any animal food. They take vitamin B12 tablets or eat fortified foods to make sure they don't become deficient.
The other group at risk from developing vitamin B12 deficiency are the Asians who live in Britain. This is particularly the vegetarians, but it's not confined to vegetarians because a lot of them only eat a very small amount of meat each day. The meats that they take, such as chicken, do not contain very much vitamin B12, and therefore some of them do develop deficiency and anemia. To make sure that the Asian in Britain gets sufficient vitamin B12, they should take at least a pint of milk a day, because this contains vitamin B12. But it is important that of this as fresh milk.
Vitamin D is the second micronutrient that is at risk for some people. We asked Dr. Sam Tucker, also of Hillingdon Hospital, to explain.
Vitamin D is one of the fat-soluble vitamins we have in the body, which helps to join with calcium to form strong bones, strong teeth, and helps children to grow into strong, healthy adults.
Most people, except growing children in the winter and the old, get enough sun on their skins to make the vitamin D they need. But poor sunshine and cover-up clothes can result in vitamin D deficiency. We need 400 international units, that's 10 micrograms a day on average, and the best food sources are household margarine and fatty fish and eggs. We asked Dr. Tucker to describe some of the problems of vitamin D deficiency.
If the mother does not get enough vitamin D, the baby is deprived of this substance, which is absolutely necessary for growing bones. When the child starts to walk, if it is not getting enough vitamin D, the bones will curve because they're not strong enough to remain perfectly straight. This only happens when the child begins to walk at a period of about a year onwards. In the older child, they get knock knees, they get inverted feet, and this results in them unable to run properly, unable to play games in the normal way, and lastly, especially if this is a female child, this child will not be able to have children in the normal way because the bones are deformed and mal-shaped.
As with vitamin B12, it is the Asians in Britain on special diets who are particularly at risk. Vitamin D supplement helps, but doctors don't like giving medicine when the problem is a dietary one. In their cooking, Asian mothers use a clarified form of butter called ghee. Ghee, made from butter, contains no vitamin D. Margarine contains adequate amounts of vitamin D, and ghee can be made from margarine. Eggs can be added to the diet, and oily fish are good sources too. They can be mixed easily into a curry sauce. A third way is to fortify chapati flour. A recent survey showed that 95% of 18-month-old children were already eating chapatis. Finally, a nutrient that is at risk for most of us, the essential fatty acids, or EFA. These help to keep our arteries smooth and control internal blood clotting. They are found in seeds like wheat and pulses, in dark green vegetables, fatty fish, and fats and oils that are high in polyunsaturated fatty acids. If we eat too much fatty meat, dairy fat, coconut and palm oil, hard margarine and shortenings, and all the products made from these, we replace the essential fatty acids with saturated fatty acids, which can lead to coronary heart disease. This is a very new and very important piece of information. As well as these 6 nutrients, which some or all of us need to be concerned about, there are other substances called trace nutrients. Each trace nutrient has a specific job to do, but they are needed in such tiny amounts that we are only beginning to check their importance. If you eat a lot of refined foods, you can miss out on these trace nutrients, which cannot be made up by taking vitamin pills. Vitamin pills cannot supply trace nutrients that haven't been investigated. All we know for sure is that they are in good, old-fashioned, unrefined foods.